And, and then they got on a ship that they thought was going to come to the United States, but then they got on a slave ship that went to Mexico. And then they were there for a little while, and then they escaped and walked all the way from Veracruz, Mexico to El Paso, Texas, about 1,000 miles or better. We were in Sunday school class, and someone came in and says, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. I said, where's Pearl Harbor? We didn't know. And there's a Caucasian teacher, Sunday school teacher, and we were supposed to go to a basketball outing, at a grammar school. And so we were going to cancel it, but then this Mrs. White, she was a Sunday school teacher, said, you're Americans, you go over there and go play basketball. So we went, and I swear that the whole block around by the high school, they had the radios outside blasting that the Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. So the next day, I went to school, and no one said anything. And I used to eat with all the B-team football players. And I went there, and no one came. So after that, I started going to the stadium and eating by myself.
When did you learn of President Roosevelt's order to intern Japanese Americans?
We lived in town, and they had telephone poles all around in town. There's an old town, and they had to evacuate in a couple weeks. And so my brother, he tried to go to his farm, but there's a guard there, Army guard, and he wouldn't let him go into the farm. He had about 20 Mexican laborers, so he had to get a Caucasian man to take all his equipment into town, city limit. So he gave the Caucasian we had cabbage and cauliflower in the fall, and he had to give that up, and to get all his farming equipment out. And after he got out of the army, he went back to see about the farm equipment. It was all stolen. It was just wiped clean. They told us to go to the railroad station and with one suitcase each, and we waited for the train, and the train came, and there's people from Los Angeles. The train was full. The train operator, he was mad at the Japanese, so he jerked the train, and people had to stay in their seats, otherwise one girl broke her arm because she was on the aisle, and the train just jerked, and she broke her arm. That's all I know. We ended up in Tulare, California, and right by the camp, the barbed wire fence, and we went in there, and so we were lucky we got the mattress for our cot. But some people, they had to get hay and put it in the sack and for the mattress. I volunteered to go to the next camp. I didn't know where it was.
So why did you volunteer to go to the other camp?
Well, I was living with my brother, and my brother decided to volunteer with me. He left his family, and we went, just the two of us. And so we got a job in a kitchen in Gila, close, about half a block from the school. So. And I was getting paid $8 a month, and my brother was getting $12 a month because he he was out of school. I was a school kid yet. So worked 6 days a week in the kitchen. $8 for me at that time was pretty good because no one else was making any money. And I used to play baseball for the school. So we used to go from one school to another. And I tell the bus driver to stop and go at Sears Roebuck. And I'd run in and get a record, one or two records every time, Glenn Miller music. And so I loaned it to the school to have dances, in the mess hall. And then when I left the whole record with them. When we left Oxnard, we thought we were going to go to a real cold area, so I had boots, long johns, everything, wool socks and everything. Then when I volunteered, we went to Gila, Arizona, about 115 degrees. It was kind of rough for a while until they start giving us a little money to buy shorts and stuff like that. It was so hot that no air conditioning, so everybody used to dig a hole underneath the barrack and stay there during the day. Sometimes they'll have companies, Gila monsters and rattlesnakes. But so when they went down to the cellar, they used to look all over, see if there was any scorpions. A lot of kids just bored stiff because there's nothing to do. Oh, I know when they had silver quarter, they used to pound it all day with a spoon to make a ring, dig a hole and make a ring. That's all they did. Just nothing to do over there. But then they start having baseball. We were on one side of the camp, and then the other side was baseball field. People, at first, kids used to go underneath the fence and go clean up the field, the sagebrush and all that, cut the sagebrush so they could play baseball. And finally the camp director decided to let them open the fence over there so we could go play baseball. In the U.S., all the guys that going in the Army, so they're short of labor. A friend was working in a defense plant, so he got me the job. When I was working so hard that the managers told me, take it easy, so don't work so hard. It makes it look bad for the rest of us.
How did you get assigned to the Army?
That was that's the only place they sent Japanese Americans into the Army, or intelligence. There was about 6,000 that went to the islands and interpreted Japanese.
Tell me about Camp Blanding.
Oh, it was hot and snakes. One guy put the machine gun down, looked right straight at a 7-foot rattlesnake.
And what kind of training did you do there?
Oh, everything. The 17 weeks was the training, but we took 21 weeks because we had to learn artillery and everything. We were just a replacement going, so we didn't know what we were going to do. A rifleman.
Tell me about the trip aboard the Queen Mary.
Well, it's crowded. It's about 5,000 soldiers. And Mickey Rooney was there. He was an entertainer.
And what was your job on board the ship?
Washing dishes from 3 o'clock in the morning until late at night.
How did you end up with that job?
I know KP, you know, hey, you, come on over. Queen Mary was so fast that the time went right away, you know.
And where did you sleep?
I was on the bunk, there's six level of bunks on the bottom of the ship, and I was on the top. I had to climb up over everybody. On the way to England, they had Italian prisoners up there, and they were in the stateroom. And we was wondering, how come they get on the stateroom, you know, on top, and we were on the bottom deck. When we got there, a friend of my brother's came up to me and said, "Hey, your brother died 5 days ago." I said, "Wow, I didn't know," and I was waiting for my sister to write to me about it, but she never did. So after Brewers, I was in, this friend of mine and I went AWOL to Nice, France, and we were walking. We weren't going to go AWOL, but then the our company office was closed so early in the morning. So we hopped on a truck that was going to Nice, France, and so we went and washed our hands in the Mediterranean, just to say we washed our hands in the Mediterranean. And then we were walking around. We saw a volleyball game going on, and all girls and in bikinis. I said, they never had bikinis in the United States yet, you know. And so we stayed there for, we're going to stay just a few minutes, and we stayed there about an hour. and then we start walking around. Finally, the stores open, and I said, "Hey, go get your perfume," because we had to climb up 2 mountains yet, you know, hitchhike back to where our close to where we were stationed, and we had to climb up 2 mountains. So I told him, "Hurry, get your perfume." So he went in the perfume shop, and then I was waiting outside, and 4 guys start coming toward me from the 442nd. Hey, that one guy sure looks familiar. It's my brother. I thought he was dead. I told him, "Hey, I thought you were dead." I was really happy to see him here. But he said, "Hey, do you have any money? How about loaning me some money?" Well, I heard that 442nd was going to move. And I was in a hospital with trench foot, but then it's almost well. So when they were going, then I joined our company. And we got on an LSD boat and went to Italy.
How did you get trench foot?
Staying up in the mountain in the snow, and our socks was always wet. One day I looked and I saw a black spot on my left toe. That's pretty good. I went, I stayed, at least we got hot meal. While when we were up there, we were eating nothing but K-ration. Yeah. At least there was a shower, room shower right across from where I was. Every day, day and night, twice a day I take a shower. The 92nd Division, whole division was on the left flank of us, and they couldn't move because the Germans had all that mountain, and they're looking down on them, so they couldn't move. Every time they moved, the artillery shells start coming in. So we went on the other side of the mountain, And at night, went into a small town, Asano, and we stayed there all with the pigs and the chickens. And the next night, we got out and started an attack on and found the 3rd Battalion went first, and they found German soldiers snoring because they figured no one was going to attack at night. So they caught them snoring. We were supposed to just go up the mountain and watch a counterattack. You know, if they were going to counterattack, we were there waiting for them, but they never showed up. Then we were supposed to get artillery shell support, never got it, and so our motor start 150 yards in front of us, and everybody start attacking the Mount Belvedere. And one Caucasian officer yelled, "Banzai!" So everybody started yelling "Banzai," and we attacked. We captured about 50 German soldiers, killed some. You know, we only lost four men. After we started chasing the Germans, then we came to a town called Castapoggio. Down in the valley, they had a fort crossed from one mountain to the other. And the captain asked for dive bombers to come. About 3 of them came and knocked a hole in the fort. So then, as soon as the dive bombers left, the captain I think he wanted one of the lieutenants, Caucasian lieutenants, to go down with someone to check on how the fort was. And no one volunteered, so he went, and I happened to be with him because I was the wireman. And so we went alongside the fort and got to the main part where the hole was, and then he told me to go. He stopped and told me to set up the telephone for him. And then he told me to go about 50 yards ahead, and then he told me to go up to the fort. I knew I was going to die, so I went up. I stuck my head out the ground level. No one shot at me. Then I went up there more, and where my whole body was, on ground level, and no one shot at me. So I went to the hole in the wall, and I looked in, and I saw a white flag, and there's 17 German soldiers there. And after I captured them, then I called the captain, and he came in and went into the fort. So I heard later on that he got the Silver Star for that.
Do you remember Victory Day?
It was in Genoa. We were in Genoa, Italy, and we were in a big hallway, and we heard all kinds of firecrackers going off. And so I went outside and said, "Guerra finito," war's end. So I was happy for that. I had German prisoners working in our camp. I treated the German prisoner pretty good. And one day I was taking a nap when I was supposed to be on guard. And I saw all these German soldiers right next to me. And they found a burp gun. And they're going to give it to me. You know, man, I brought it all the way back to New York Harbor, and it got so heavy. My bag was so heavy, I jumped it in the water.
So it was
That
a
was
gift.
going to be my souvenir. I was willing to go anytime. You know, I mean, at my as soon as I turned 18, then I was ready, you know, to go. Even if I had to go fight Japanese, you know. In fact, the whole regiment after Italy volunteered to go to fight in the Pacific. But they won't let us go because we looked alike, you know. So, well, that's it.
Why did you re-enlist?
Because to look for my parents, they were in Japan and near Hiroshima, and I was the only single in the family, so I decided to re-enlist, go look for them.
And tell me about making the trip out to see your parents.
Well, first I went into quartermaster because I forgot the division, but they're about 150 miles away from Hiroshima, and that was the closest. So I volunteered for that outfit. After a few weeks in Japan, I asked a lieutenant if I could take a few days off to go look for my parents, and he wasn't going to give it to me. But the major was sitting right by him. So get the man a 10-day pass. So I got 10 days to go look for my mom and dad. And when I got to the town named Kaita, my sister-in-law told me just about where to go. So I knew just about where it was, and I looked. When I got there, I looked out there, and my dad was raking the ground, dirt, you know, and he was facing the other way. So I went up to him and said, "Hi, Pop," and he about died, hugged me for the first time, and he called my mother, and my mother was sick in bed, but she came running out, and that's how I met my mom and dad. We were in Hiroshima that early morning, gathering firewood, and when they were coming back home 4 miles, he was coming home, and all his friends and relatives were going to Hiroshima to get firewood. And they're laughing at him. But when he got home and sat on to take off his shoes in the house, and the bomb went off and knocked him to the ground. But all his friends and relatives, they're gone. I mean, they're dead, you know. But my mom and dad were safe. My grandmother was coming to my parents' place. She had an umbrella facing Hiroshima, and when the bomb went off, the umbrella burnt, but saved her life. You know, so my uncle had a son and daughter in school in Hiroshima. He lost both of them. They went looking for him. That's why I think my dad, the next day they went and looking for him, and all that fume got in his lungs, and he had lung cancer.
Okay, tell me about moving to Georgia.
Well, I was in Chicago, and I was what they call chick sexing, determine the sex of a baby chicken. And they had, I was going to Iowa, Nebraska, and all of the coal country. And when I found out there's a job in Georgia, I didn't know where Georgia was at that time, but it was a warmer country anyway, so I decided to come out here. When I first came down here, I wanted to use the bathroom. I looked colored white. I said, so I went to the attendant. I said, hey, which one am I supposed to use? And he told me, use the white one.